My wife gave our baby to her sterile sister, but now that everything is out in the open, both of them are going to jail. I, a 26-year-old man, met my wife Jackie, also 26, when we were both in high school. We were classmates assigned to do a project together, so we started spending time after school at each other's houses. During this time, we both had the opportunity to get to know each other's families. Our backgrounds are quite different. I grew up in a typical family with my mom, dad, and brother, who were middle class thanks to my father's military career. On the other hand, my wife's family had its own difficulties. Her parents separated when she was young, and apparently her father was abusive towards her older sister Getter. Despite the separation, my wife lived with both her mom and dad as they had joint custody until she was a teenager. Getter only lived with her mom, and although their relationship was complicated, it was not abusive like her sister's. Instead, it seemed like her dad had trouble setting boundaries and guiding her properly. My wife Jackie had told me from the beginning that her older sister Getter, 30, always resented her for having a better relationship with her dad. I hate to write this, but Getter is just like her dad. She would do everything possible to bully everyone around her, and my wife bore the brunt of it. Getter went out of her way to make Jackie's life difficult. She mocked my wife's outfits or her hair during high school. Whenever I went to see Jackie, I would see Getter pulling almost cruel pranks on her, like locking Jackie in the bathroom and turning off the lights while Jackie screamed for help since she was afraid of dark spaces. If Jackie received more birthday gifts from her friends, Getter would get angry and cut up the clothes she had been given. Once, I remember Jackie came to school disheveled, trying to hide her hair with a hat. She had always had long blonde hair, so when I asked what had happened, she broke down and told me how Getter had mixed dye with her shampoo, and she had to cut her hair short to save what she could. It was heartbreaking to see her like that. Getter's envy seemed to have no limits, and Jackie bore the worst of it all too often. I couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel to their own sister. To me, it was clear that their relationship was toxic, but Jackie always seemed to make excuses for Getter's behavior, saying she was just going through a rough time. I always hoped that Jackie would eventually realize her worth as a person and distance herself from Getter's toxicity. Her mother did nothing to help Jackie through all of this. My wife was always unfairly compared to her older sister. According to my wife, her mother always said her older sister was prettier, smarter, more talented, nicer, more popular, and simply better in every way. As a result, my wife became a good student while growing up, trying to gain her mother's approval. Her mother, Lori, always told her to improve her grades, even though Jackie was at the top of our class. Lori would severely punish Jackie if she brought home any bad grades. When we were working on our project at her house, Lori would come too close and try to give her opinion, telling us how we could improve our project, even though we were supposed to do it without our parents' help. Lori would ask me questions about whether Jackie behaved well at school or if she was really a good student. I felt very uncomfortable because I didn't know Jackie well at that time, and being in the middle of all that wasn't pleasant. I guess this is when I unconsciously started defending Jackie. I would tell her mother every time I visited that Jackie had done something well during class, while Jackie would just smile and blush. Instead of praising her daughter, her mother would say things like, "Jackie has a lot of room for improvement," and how she needed to improve to stand out. When Jackie and I realized our feelings for each other, she was extremely scared that Getter and her mother would find out. Looking back, I was too young to see how much she was being abused. She tried to hide our relationship as much as she could, like not messaging me once Lori came home from work, deleting her messages with me every night, or not holding my hand for fear that Getter would see us. When prom was about to happen in a few months, I asked her to go with me, but Jackie was afraid to say yes. Being an ignorant teenager, I had had enough of her and her restrictions. I quite rudely told her that if she didn't go with me to prom, then I was going to break up with her because I was tired of all this hiding. This reduced Jackie to tears, and she confessed to me about how she was afraid that her mother and Getter would try to ruin our relationship because they tended to take away all the good things in her life. I felt really bad at that moment. In the end, Jackie decided to open up about her relationship with her mother. Getter threw a huge tantrum about how Jackie had a boyfriend before her and started yelling at her to break up with me. She told her she wasn't good enough, so I would break up with her anyway, so it was better for her to do it. This made Jackie cry a lot, and she was insecure with me for a long time, thinking I would really leave her over all this. As you can imagine, Getter and I never got along. I always felt that she couldn't stand me, maybe because of the idea that someone could date her sister. She would throw insults, calling me a loser or stupid for being with someone like Jackie. To try to separate us, she would refuse to give us space if I ever wanted to spend time with Jackie at her house. So, Jackie and I started spending more and more time at my house. My mom has always adored Jackie. She joked with us about how she always wanted to have a daughter but ended up with 2 sons. I didn't mind sharing my mom with Jackie because I could see how much happier and more radiant she was at our house. Jackie started coming over more and more and even had dinner with us. She became such a constant figure in my home that my brother treated her like his own sister. Moreover, my dad would get Jackie's favorite strawberry cake whenever he could because Jackie loved the bakery near my dad's workplace. Sometimes, Jackie would even spend the night. I guess this is when the real problems began. Lori scolded Jackie for spending all her time at my house and threw insults at her for spending time with me. Jackie's father had no problem with this, probably because he was already spending time with another woman at this point. But Lori was determined that I was a distraction in Jackie's life and ordered Jackie to break things off with me. Jackie refused, and this resulted in a big fight. When Lori found our messages on Jackie's phone and angrily broke her phone, she started ruthlessly tearing apart Jackie's room and threatened to take her door away. Getter only added fuel to the fire, saying that Jackie was probably doing things with me and that's how girls get pregnant. Their fight became so intense that Jackie's dad had to come and pick her up. He helped her pack her clothes and books so she could move to his house. Meanwhile, Lori kept yelling many inappropriate things at Jackie, traumatizing her even more. Once Jackie started living with her dad, I think things got a little better. I will never say he was the best father because he was abusive towards Getter. But maybe he changed over the years because he was much more patient with Jackie. He even allowed us to see each other but was firm that she had to be home before 7 p.m. However, he had no problem with Jackie spending time at my house. My mom even sent cakes with Jackie to give to her dad, and that way he got to know my family. When it was time for Jackie to go to college, Lori contacted Jackie, begging her to go to a closer college so she could still see Jackie. I urged Jackie not to let her do this and that we needed to study at a good university and get as far away from her as possible. Fortunately, Jackie agreed, and she and I got into the same university, and she even qualified for a scholarship. Now, college was much better for us. My parents came to see us whenever they could, and Jackie's dad was in constant contact with her. Jackie started making new friends and began to open up more. We could go out and party with our friends without worrying about her mom calling or yelling at us. Obviously, Jackie and I still worked hard and behaved well, but we were a bit freer. Once during college, Lori came to visit Jackie. Jackie was stressed all day because she knew what was coming. I don't even know why Lori came to visit her because all she did all day was mock Jackie's college choice and outfit, and comment on how Jackie seemed to have changed and how she was no longer the respectful daughter she had raised. Lori boasted the whole time about how Getter had finally met the perfect guy for her and they had recently gotten married. This was news to Jackie, as she had no idea and was upset about not being invited, even though she and Getter hadn't spoken in a while. Lori compared Getter's guy to me and how he could provide everything for Getter, which was ridiculous since I was still in college. However, this affected Jackie a lot and she was sad for days. I have always felt that Lori consciously brings Jackie down so that Jackie can keep striving for her approval. Even though Jackie could have cut ties with her mom, she told me how much she missed her and wondered if things would get better between them in the future. In our 3rd year of college, Jackie and I were in a good relationship when we found out she was pregnant. She had been experiencing morning sickness for a week and her period was late. Once we put 2 and 2 together, we were more than excited. I know that as a college student, it wasn't the most ideal time, but I didn't care since Jackie has always been the love of my life. If things turned out this way, I was ready to take responsibility and support her and our baby. We went together to the ultrasounds, and the doctor told us everything seemed fine. Finally, I told my parents, and they were both shocked and happy for us. My dad assured me that I had nothing to worry about, and my mom said she would help Jackie and our baby as much as she could. The only problem was that Jackie had to talk to her parents. I knew this was going to be a very difficult conversation since her mother would definitely blame her and me. But I encouraged Jackie to talk since this was a necessary conversation before the baby arrived. Jackie decided to go home and talk to her parents alone. I begged her not to go alone and that I wanted to be there too because I feared for her safety. But Jackie assured me she needed to face this alone. That weekend, Jackie returned to her dad's house, where she eventually called her mom and asked to meet. She had been texting me until she arrived at her dad's house. Now here is where things get confusing. For days after Jackie's supposed meeting at her dad's house, she didn't respond to my calls or messages. I was sick with worry as I started to think the worst. 2 weeks after incessant calls and messages, Jackie called me to say she was dropping out of college. I was stunned as this was not at all the news I was expecting to hear. I asked her what had happened, and she told me how her mother was fine with her pregnancy, but had insisted that she needed to be a good mother and take a break from the stress of college. She emphasized how the baby could be affected by her constant movement in college and that she could always return to college the next year. I reminded her about her scholarship, but Jackie told me that her parents had discussed and agreed to help her with her university fees. She also told me she was afraid people would talk behind her back and judge her for getting pregnant. I told her that if people judged her, they would judge me too, but I didn't care because she was my girlfriend and we loved each other. However, Jackie refused to be honest. All of this sounded very suspicious to me. I didn't know what to think, and I begged her to come back so we could talk. I even said I wanted to drive back and meet her so we could discuss all our options. I reminded her how my parents were willing to help so she wouldn't have to drop out of university. I assured her that we would talk to the professors together. I don't know why, but I had a knot in my stomach because I feared my girlfriend was being manipulated. Jackie rejected all my offers of help and told me she was perfectly safe and fine. She assured me she would come back to university very soon. Then I asked her what was going to happen with the baby, and she told me that her mother would take care of the baby. I immediately opposed this. I told her she had no right to make a decision about the baby on her own since I was the father. Jackie told me that although her mother was tough on her sometimes, she was generally a good mother. I almost laughed when I heard this and pointed out that she spent most of her high school years at my house because she hated being at home and how her mom almost made her. This resulted in a fight, with Jackie arguing that I was being too harsh on her mother and that I should show more compassion. I told her I couldn't force her to go back to university, but when it came to the baby, I didn't want her mother near our child. In the end, Jackie assured me that we would make that decision after the baby was born. Reluctantly, I agreed. Months went by with Jackie and I talking on the phone whenever we could. I was working hard in university to get my degree, while Jackie was going through the pregnancy completely alone. Throughout all of this, Lori and Getter were exceptionally kind to her. This is what I heard from Jackie. She would excitedly tell me how her sister would go with her to her ultrasounds, and how her mother would give her foot massages whenever she felt tired. During this time, I would sometimes visit Jackie whenever I had a break from university. Lori hated these visits and constantly blamed me for Jackie's pregnancy, but I endured her reproaches just to see my girlfriend. However, whenever I wanted to touch Jackie's belly or spend time talking to our child, as any hopeful father would, Jackie encouraged me to do so too, but Lori or Getter would interrupt us. They would tell me it was weird and that I shouldn't be so involved. I asked them what they meant by that, but they ignored me. As the due date approached, Jackie told me how her mother and sister had convinced her to have a home birth with a doula present. I researched it and firmly told her no, as I was afraid of all the things that could go wrong. However, Jackie started insisting that she had met the doula and was really considering the idea of a home birth. Looking back, I wish I could have stopped her, but I guess life had other plans for us. The day Jackie gave birth, I was taking my exams. My phone was on silent and I wasn't allowed to check it during exams. When I finished, I found 8 missed calls from Jackie and her message saying she needed me to be with her immediately. I called her, but no one answered. I called again, and that's when Getter answered the phone. I asked her what had happened to Jackie and if she was okay. Getter assured me that Jackie was fine, but that I needed to come and didn't want to give me more details. I jumped in my car and drove for 5 hours straight to be there for Jackie. During the drive, I couldn't stop thinking the worst. When I arrived at her house, I ran to see her. Lori and her ex-husband looked somber when they opened the door. I didn't even bother with them as I searched for Jackie and found her in her room. Jackie was curled up on her bed and crying. Instinctively, I hugged her, desperately seeking an answer about what had happened to our child. However, Jackie kept crying, unable to find the words to explain. Overwhelmed by suspense, I begged her to share the truth with me. Jackie finally took a deep breath and told me between sobs that she had lost our child. I felt as if the ground trembled beneath me and I could feel my heart breaking. I started sobbing and Jackie held me as I cried for hours in her lap. I kept asking her what had happened, and she told me how the baby was declared stillborn. She continued talking about the reactions of her doula, her mom, and her sister, but I felt like I just couldn't grasp any of it. I felt like vomiting and ran to the bathroom. Later, I called my parents to come and pick me up. They didn't even know Jackie had given birth, so they came rushing. Once they heard the news, they were as heartbroken as I was. My mom held me while we both cried, and my dad hugged Jackie and assured her that they were there for her. I can't begin to write how painful those days were. I had never really been depressed or suicidal in my life, but I came very close during this time. The only good thing was that Jackie and I still loved each other. We never left each other. Eventually, I had to go back to university, and the next semester, Jackie returned to university as she had told me. For a long time, I feared being intimate with her again as the death of our child continued to haunt me. Looking back now, Jackie never reacted the same way I did. I mean, yes, she was crying when I first went to see her, but within a few days, she was back to her usual self. At the time, I thought maybe it was her coping mechanism. She would go out with friends, drink, or party as if nothing bad had ever happened. She recovered quickly, while I continued to feel heartbroken and uncomfortable, and my parents called me regularly. 3 months after Jackie's incident, Getter informed us that she had given birth. I was stunned because I had no idea she was even pregnant in the first place. I questioned Jackie, but she told me how Getter had gotten pregnant after her but had forgotten to tell me. This was very unusual for Jackie since we had known each other since we were teenagers, and she and I never had any secrets. During her pregnancy, she never once mentioned that Getter was pregnant, but Jackie kept assuring me that the pregnancy had made her forget things, and that this happens to many women. In the end, although I was suspicious, I let the matter drop. Now 3 years have passed since Jackie and I graduated from college. Since I graduated before her, I got a job first, which helped me save money so we could move into our rented place. When she graduated, we both had excellent jobs and contributed equally to rent and bills. Feeling secure and established, I finally proposed to her this year. Everyone congratulated us. By then, the relationship between Lori and me had also improved, and she no longer mocked me. We were going to have a traditional church wedding. When we went to talk to our priests about our vows, he emphasized how couples should not have secrets and that we should be honest with each other before our marriage. Otherwise, it would be a sin and a betrayal in the eyes of God. Since that day, I noticed Jackie was very nervous. She asked me if I had anything to confess to her, but I laughed, as I had never hidden anything from her. When I asked her the same, she got offended and asked how I could even suspect her, and that I should have more trust in her if I was going to marry her. Her reaction surprised me because I thought we were joking, but I decided not to delve further. However, Jackie remained unusually quiet and distracted throughout our wedding process. Now, I have seen some brides go overboard when it comes to wedding planning, but Jackie seemed not to care at all. When my excited mother wanted to go dress shopping with her, she told my mother that she could choose a dress for her since she had no preference. Jackie showed no interest in guest lists or centerpieces. Fortunately, my parents stepped up for us and helped plan everything. Jackie seemed completely out of place. I even asked her if she had any doubts, but she then got emotional and assured me that she had no doubt in her mind that she was going to be my wife. On our wedding day, while my friends and I partied during the reception and had fun, Jackie seemed unusually quiet. I could see her smiling and talking to the guests, but it wasn't natural. Finally, I met Getter's daughter during the wedding, and her daughter had the same blue eyes as Getter and Jackie. I hugged her and almost got emotional thinking about how Jackie and I had lost our child. Getter congratulated me and quickly took her daughter away to eat and mingle with other guests. During the celebration, I found Jackie furiously arguing with her mom in a low voice, but they went silent when I approached them. I guess that's when the alarm bells went off in my head. Weeks later, during the honeymoon, Jackie continued to look sad. I knew something was bothering her, and I couldn't bear it anymore. I told her she needed to tell me whatever was on her mind, but Jackie tried to evade the question. I remained firm and refused to let her escape this time. I told her how suspicious her behavior had been in the last few weeks. I explained that she could tell me anything because if she didn't, I would only think the worst of her. Jackie laughed dryly and told me I couldn't even imagine what she had done. Hearing this, I felt a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. I thought she might have cheated on me. I insisted that she be honest with me, assuring her that we could face anything together. Finally, Jackie took a deep breath and began to share her secret while crying quietly. She confessed through tears that she had been lying to me all this time and that it was eating her up inside, because she didn't want our marriage to start off on the wrong foot. I waited patiently while my mind raced as she continued saying how she knew I might not forgive her but needed to tell me this. She told me that apparently, she never lost our baby. My eyes widened in shock as she continued saying how she had given our baby to her sister Getter because her family pressured her a lot. Apparently, Getter and her husband had been trying to have a baby, but Getter couldn't get pregnant because she was infertile. So, when she found out Jackie was pregnant, she was excited and started telling Jackie how she needed to give her the baby and made her believe she wasn't ready to take care of a child at her age yet. Lori, who had been against the idea of Jackie being pregnant, suddenly seemed to agree with Getter's idea and pressured Jackie, saying this was the best solution for everyone. When Jackie said no, things got worse. Her mom and sister started yelling at her, calling her stupid and selfish, and saying that Getter could give the child everything she never could since she was still a broke college student. Getter pointed out that it didn't matter who raised the child since the child would be part of the family anyway, and that Jackie could always love the child as an aunt. Jackie kept refusing and even thought about running away, but they took her phone, making her feel trapped. Even her dad got involved and threatened to kick her out while she was still pregnant. Her mom kept saying that giving the baby to Getter wasn't a big deal and that she should do this for her infertile sister. She assured her that this would make them love her even more. I sat there in stunned silence as Jackie continued trying to explain and justify her actions. I felt like I was in a fog and suddenly felt repulsed by her. I simply walked out of the room because I couldn't stand being near her. As I write this on Reddit, I'm trembling with anger while my wife continues to call me desperately. I don't want to talk to her because I'm so angry about what she has done. She gave my daughter to her infertile sister and hid this fact for so long. I can't believe I met my daughter at the wedding and Getter acted like she was hers. I will make sure my wife, her sister, and her entire family pay for what they have done. However, just a few days ago, I took my marriage vows, and I was raised thinking I should never abandon my family and that things can always be worked out. So, am I an idiot if I leave my wife and pursue this legally? If I can get my daughter back, will my wife be in trouble? I don't know what to think. I feel numb. Please help me. Update 1. I am overwhelmed by the thousands of comments on my post. Strangers have been reaching out to ask if this is true and offer their condolences. I regret to say this is true, and I am a complete fool who was deceived by my wife and her family. How could I have been so stupid? I have read all your comments, and believe me, I blame myself more than you can blame me. I have cried for hours and hours. My daughter is 4 years old and has been living a lie just like I have. After posting this, I went back to my room and packed all my things so I could fly back home. Jackie kept begging me not to leave her, even getting on her knees, but I had already made up my mind. I don't know how, but all the love and adoration I felt for her over the years seemed to vanish. I felt disgusted and betrayed. Currently, I am at my parents' house, and they are as shocked as I am to hear the news. My parents are ready to confront Jackie's parents. I am going to contact a lawyer who can help me with all of this. Let me get my head straight and figure out all my options. Update 2. It has been 2 months since my last update. I know it's been a while, but going to court every day has kept me busy. First of all, to answer multiple questions, no, I am no longer married to Jackie. My lawyer helped us get the marriage annulled on grounds of irreconcilable differences, and I explained to the judge how my wife wanted to stay married to her. The judge was shocked and asked if he had heard correctly. Anyone who hears my story is stunned and asks me to repeat it because no one can believe how a mother could be so cruel. Jackie, for her part, continued playing the role of the grieving ex-wife. Many of you told me that if Jackie had really wanted to, she could have fought for custody of the baby a long time ago. However, she continued to remain silent and let me suffer, thinking we had lost our daughter. Clearly, she loved her sister and mother more than me. I don't mind the love, but she had the audacity to give away my daughter and made me believe it was a stillbirth. I have been going to court every day with my lawyer, trying to prove this in court. The first thing the judge ordered was a paternity test to verify if I was really the father. Getter's lawyer fought vigorously but had to concede when it was declared that I was indeed the girl's father. There was a big uproar. I felt like confronting Getter while she and Lori kept silently crying as if they were the wronged ones. Jackie sat in the courtroom looking devastated. The judge ordered a full investigation into the circumstances surrounding the child's relinquishment to Getter. Since it has now been proven that I am the father, my lawyer has told me that Jackie's actions were not only emotionally distressing, but also legally questionable, and she could end up in prison. Honestly, I hope she does because, as a father, I don't want any other man to face this nightmare. No parent has the right to give away their child. And I hope my case serves as an example for anyone even thinking about doing this. Update 3. Sorry for the delay in updating. I know it has been 6 months since my last update, but I couldn't do so while the legal custody proceedings were still ongoing. In the weeks following, the legal proceedings took a significant turn. Testimonies were heard, documents were presented, and the truth began to emerge. It was revealed that Jackie had been coerced and pressured by her family, especially her mother and sister, to give our daughter to Getter. Getter's lawyer, trying to defend their actions, argued that they genuinely believed Jackie was not ready to be a mother and that giving the baby to Getter was in the child's best interest. They also argued that the child should not be displaced from her home and that it would be better for Getter to remain her mother. However, the judge was not swayed and emphasized the importance of respecting both parents' rights. Based on the evidence presented and the judge's decision to prioritize the child's best interest, I was granted custody, and legal action was initiated against Getter and Jackie. The court found grounds to press charges related to coercion, manipulation, and possible violations of family and child welfare laws. As a result, both Getter and Jackie have been arrested. The charges include actions that caused emotional distress to both parents, coercion of Jackie to relinquish the child, and potential violations of parental rights. The court also ordered Lori and Jackie's father to attend mandatory counseling since they encouraged their daughters to do this, although it was Getter who really devised and executed the plan. Getter's husband was unaware of the coercion and manipulation orchestrated by Getter and Jackie and had been thinking that Jackie never wanted her daughter. I really felt bad for him when he cried a lot when it was time to part with my daughter. Due to his limited involvement, the legal consequences for him involved paying a hefty fine and community service. The judge warned everyone to stay away from me and my daughter. Otherwise, their next legal consequences would be much worse. When the ruling was delivered, I had tears of joy streaming down my face. I couldn't believe I had finally won custody to be with my daughter. The legal system had worked and held Jackie and Getter accountable. Lori cried and screamed as she saw her two daughters being led out of the court in handcuffs. I really felt bad when I saw Jackie's face and the regret on her face, but I reminded myself that she was no longer the woman I had fallen in love with. Moreover, all the years of lies and the time that was stolen from me with my daughter. Since the court ruling, my daughter, whose name is Amber, has been living with me and my parents. A social worker came to drop her off, and they informed us that they would continue visiting us for a few months until they were sure Amber felt comfortable living with us. I'm not going to lie, but I cried and hugged my daughter for hours while she looked confused. Later, my parents showed Amber her new room, and she excitedly jumped on her bed. For a few days, I couldn't even believe that my daughter was alive and that I finally had her after months of fighting in court. It was very difficult all those months, waiting for the court to rule in my favor. Knowing that my daughter was alive and with other people was distressing. Every time I see her, I just want to hug her and never let her go. The first few weeks were tough with Amber as she missed her mom, but we've been going to therapy where I gently showed her pictures of Jackie and me when she was pregnant and told her that I was really her dad and how they had separated us. Amber took some time to process the news, but the therapist assured us that she would eventually get used to us and that we should give her time. We take her to the park every weekend, play, draw, and spend quality time together. Gradually, I see Amber opening up, her laughter becoming more frequent, and her trust in me growing. The social worker visits have been positive, and with each passing visit, it's affirmed that Amber is adjusting well to her new environment. The initial confusion and sadness are gradually giving way to the joy of creating new memories together. My parents have been incredible pillars of support, providing love and stability for Amber during this transition period as we navigate this confusing journey together. I am grateful for the support I've received from Reddit since my first post. The wounds of the past are gradually healing, and I'd like to move forward in my life. Update 4. It has been a few months since the last update, but I came back because I wanted to share how these past months have been for Amber and how Getter and Jackie's lives have been after the court events. Firstly, Amber has been flourishing in her new environment. As time goes by, her confidence and joy continue to grow. Now she feels completely at home with us and is full of energy and enthusiasm. We have established a solid family routine, which includes fun activities, playtime, and lots of loving and affectionate moments. I'm also thinking about finding my own place to move in with her, but close to my parents as they are a very important source of support. Additionally, Amber has grown very fond of them. Amber has proven to be an incredible child. I thought it would take her much longer to adapt, but that hasn't been the case. She has formed a strong bond with me and my parents and has brought us a lot of happiness after dark years. As for Getter and Jackie, their lives have taken a completely different turn. After facing legal charges and the consequences of their actions, both have shown remorse. Getter has been sentenced to serve time in jail while Jackie, who also faced time behind bars, is serving her sentence on probation. During her time in prison, Getter has had the opportunity to reflect on her actions and the harm caused to her family and me. She is committed to seeking help and working on her rehabilitation to become a better person, taking responsibility for her actions, although that's not something I have or am willing to believe. I also know that her husband has filed for divorce. On the other hand, Jackie is receiving therapy and emotional support to help her cope with the trauma and remorse she feels for her role in all this. She is working hard to rebuild her life and repair the broken relationships with her family and me. However, that's not something I'm really seeking because what I felt for Jackie has disappeared, and I also don't want her near my daughter, whom she gave away. Still, at least I hope Jackie can find peace, but far from us. Meanwhile, my main focus remains Amber and her well-being. I am committed to providing her with love and stability, something she wouldn't have gotten in that family. Considering how Jackie and Getter were raised, getting her out of that family was the best thing that could have happened. I believe this will be my last update.